Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, honored guests. Welcome to Egypt's Oil and Gas Roundtable discussion on the future of petroleum agreements in Egypt. Firstly, I would like to extend my gratitude to His Excellency Dr. Hamdi Bambi for taking the time to address himself to this symposium. I would also like to welcome Geologist Mahfouz El-Boni, First Undersecretary for Exploration and Agreements, and the Roundtable industry executives, whose genuine interest and expressed keenness to tackle the issue at hand have made today's event possible. I would also like to thank our honorable guests, who voluntarily contributed their time to be here today, reinforcing our belief in the significance of today's topic of discussion. Last but not least, I would like to thank PICO International Petroleum for sponsoring our roundtable, and also thank all our media partners, including Energy Intelligence, Oxford Business Group, and Business Today for their presence, which plays an important role in ensuring a wide exposure of today's event. Today's roundtable is an attempt to plant the first seed for a series of discussions related to different issues within the Egyptian petroleum sector. The future of exploration and development operations in the petroleum sector necessitates the re-innovation and the fine-tuning of the legal and regulatory frameworks of today's petroleum contractual agreements, particularly in an era of rapid technological advancements and a growing interest in deepwater exploration and development. Doing so would go a long way towards streamlining the obstacles preventing a smooth conclusion of contractual agreements, further attracting more investments. Prior to our revered revolution on the 25th of January, the realistic chances of putting together an ad hoc discussion to highlight a significant issue were almost non-existent. But thankfully, we're here today, armed by every bit of knowledge and expertise we can muster, with the united goal of conceiving a roadmap for developing the agreement's framework within which we operate, to cope with today and tomorrow's challenges. From the inception of Egypt Oil and Gas, our objective has always been to provide up-to-date credible information about the Egyptian petroleum sector and work on bridging the gap between the various parties involved. Today's event is a humble attempt to realize part of our vision, and we're grateful for each and every one of you for making it a reality. Without further ado, please welcome former Minister of Petroleum, Dr. Hamdi Bambi.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very pleased to see you today and welcome you to this roundtable discussion regarding concession agreements and contracts. It is my pleasure to be with you today, and I have not prepared any official talks or things to discuss with you, but we have some items that we would like to share with everybody, your thoughts and our thoughts, aiming to a future and a prosperous joint venture agreements in the petroleum sector in Egypt. I wanted actually from every one of you to introduce himself so that we all know each other at the beginning of this session. My name is Hamdi El-Bambi. I used to be a Minister of Petroleum in Egypt during the 90s. Since from the period 91 to 99. And I am very pleased to welcome you here on behalf of my friend Engineer Mohammed Fouad. And if you can take 1 minute to introduce each one of you, please.
Salah Hafiz, Chairman of PETZ. I'm a geophysicist by training.
Mustafa Al-Bahr, I'm EGAZ Vice Chairman for Exploration and Agreement.
My name is Jeroen Rechtien. I'm a reservoir engineer by training and currently the chairman for Shell in Egypt.
Ahmed Hagras, Vice President Exploration for BP Egypt, and I'm a geophysicist by background.
Jean-Pierre Dollar, Total Exploration here in Egypt, Managing Director.
Hamid Al-Ahmadi used to be ex-chairman for Agiba Petroleum and Suez Oil, and right now I am a chairman of International Environmental and Marine Services.
Ian Barton, reservoir engineer by training, currently the general manager of Vegas Oil and Gas in Cairo.
Samir Abdelmonti, geophysicist, consultant with BP Egypt.
Mohammed Bahrawi, I'm the editor-in-chief of Egypt Oil and Gas.
Amr Aisawi, I'm the Schlumberger regional manager.
Anders Kullera, I'm the general manager for Statoil.
George Tada Said, EGPC Deputy CEO for Agreements.
Tawfiq Diab, I'm the managing director of PICO.
Abu Bakr Ibrahim, Vice Chairman for Agreement and Exploration, Ganub Al-Wadi Holding Petroleum Company.
Shawi Abdin, General Manager of PICO International.
Mahfouz El-Boni, First Under Secretary for Agreement and Exploration, Ministry of Petroleum.
Thank you all for attendance. I would like to take a couple of minutes to introduce some remarks. As a matter of fact, we have a new parliament, brand new parliament, different from the previous parliaments. And this will put a lot of work and pressure on EGPC and all the Ministry of Petroleum in general. And I would like to advise all my colleagues within the Ministry of Petroleum in EGPC, EGAS, and South Valley Holding Company to be very patient and to make great effort to explain everything to all of you. And fortunately enough, in Egypt, we always honor the previous agreements. And in Egypt, we always try to introduce modifications, good modifications to the agreements for mutual benefit of our companies and the government. The second point which I would like to introduce is that effort should be done with the committees in the new parliament to explain things to them, and this will be the task of the oil minister and his assistants. You know, we in Egypt here, we used to have agreements, and now maybe we have some started agreements with the foreign companies or international companies since 1964, something in this age. And almost all the agreements which were signed in 1964 were extended, and they are still in use. And this gives you how Egypt government and the people of the Ministry of Petroleum are very credible. We never had arbitration in application of any agreement. We have very well experienced personnel in this petroleum sector. And in the meantime, we always look for a win-win situation at any time. For this reason, I would encourage you to participate in new agreements in this country. I know there are some difficulties at present, and maybe for a few years in the past. And I hope that everyone should work toward solving some or all of these problems in the future. I don't like to take all the time talking from my side, but I would like to start, the item number 1. The first thing, the validity of the current agreements regime and its applicability to Mediterranean deep water exploration and development. I would like to hear some of your opinions, and then I will introduce some comments from my side. Anyone would like to, please?
Thank you, Dr. Hamd al-Bambi. First of all, I want to express my great appreciation for Oil and Gas for inviting me as a representative for EGPC to attend this honored gathering. Actually, let me talk about the agreements, some highlight on the history of the agreements in Egypt, since the agreements passed through 3 stages. The first one, the first stage was till 60s, which the royalty system were applied. Then we moved to the participation from 62 till 72. Then nowadays, since 1973, we are applying the production sharing agreement model. Let me give some statistics about the number of agreements since that date. The total number of agreements signed under this model of agreements were 426 agreements. The current number of agreements right now is 149. I think this number is showing that the model agreement is still viable and still surviving, and I think it shows with the benefits or the advantages of this model agreement, it ensures that still viable. Some of these advantages, like our agreements issued by law, the income tax and royalty paid by EGPC, life extension of the agreements, review and amendment of all the agreements, as His Excellency mentioned. Also, we have a clause related to stabilization clause, acceleration of CAPEX cost recovery, production letter of guarantee in case of amendment of some agreements. It's acceptable, the customs exemption, and so many advantages. I think those advantages showing that the model agreement is still viable so far. Thank you.
Thank you. The deep water is gas, so it is
that's why
your domain.
I have the honor to start this discussion. Actually, the topics cover the deep water exploration. In EGAS, we are considering some, let's say, modification or improvement in the model itself, reflecting what we learned from the previous agreements. We are considering the deep water environment, deep targets, marginal reserve, where the current, let's say, concession agreement may not be encourage the contractor to develop and produce this gas under these conditions. One of the things that we are considering is instead of having a price for the gas from day one in the agreement, this price is eliminated since the last bid round. However, we kept the agreement without putting any price regime for the gas, to purchase the gas from the contractor in the coming model. The other thing is the development lease. In order to issue a development lease, normally the contractor should supply the authorities or EGAS with a development plan and gas sales with the gas price. We cannot identify gas price before we have a complete economic study to actually or exactly define how much this would cost, what are the facilities required, the duration, the type of gas, how much pipelines he should consider to tie with the grid. There is many factors affect the price of the gas, and of course the limited or the marginal reservoir may cost high to let it fly, to let the economics fly. So this is something subject for discussion with the EGAS before issuing the development lease, and it apply the market prices. We should consider the market prices when we conducted the economic study and agreed with the contractor with the development plan, including the startup date, the market where they will deliver, where the market, the contractor will market the gas. The important issue here, some of these gases maybe goes to the local market with direct communication between the contractor and the consumer. If the contractor finds a market, local market, that he can sell his gas, and when I'm talking about his gas, I mainly talk about his profit share of the gas, or the excess gas if there is excess gas. He can market his profit share and the excess with e-gas to the local market with the free market price. If there is a market, in this case, he can use the grid to transmit his gas to the consumer. And both of us, e-gas and the contractor, will work together to market this, to support this idea. This is mainly, it will help the contractor to develop because he will get higher price. It will help to reduce the local demand for the gas, because this will supply indirect way from the contractor rather than only from the government. And it will, of course, it will help to move the prices on the long run. So this is mainly when we talk about deep water, as it's mentioned here in the subject for discussion. These are the main points that I would like to mention and to make it clear for everybody. If anything I can clarify more, you will.
Well, this is a new idea, but I will have some comment on it because it may hinder something. But I may ask Mr. Salah Hafiz to make a comment. Then, because in our session here, we would like to propose things for all of us to consider. Not to take, for example, when you do what you want, what you just mentioned, the contractor or the foreign company will have a vague area before they start, because they will be spending money and they don't know what will be done when they have a discovery, because as you mentioned, this will be a discussion at a later date. Any investor will have to have some confidence and some picture at the beginning. The idea of selling gas to a consumer, a local consumer, is a very good idea, and as a matter of fact, the Ministry of Industry, I think, will come to you and make a proposal like this, because the Industry Development Authority has already agreed to make to give some licenses for many factories, and they know that they don't have energy. So I think they will approach the Ministry of Petroleum to have an agreement to let the contractor sell a part of his gas direct to them. And in my opinion, it will be a good idea, because instead of buying the gas from the contractor, then subsidizing it and selling it to the industry, you may make a direct communication, and the Ministry of Petroleum will take some charges regarding the utilization of the national grid. But I still need Mr. Salah Hafiz to make his comment before we move.
Thank you, Dr. Bambi. And thank Mustafa Al-Bahr and Al Saeed for the very important comments that they have put forward. And I would like to cast a wider net on the issue, since I was the first vice chairman of EGPC for petroleum agreements. This was in '85. I was there from '85 to '91. Before that, it was part of the exploration activities. The first task that I was given, I walked you through some history, and this will help us understand the problem as it was conceived when we first introduced the gas clause. The first gas clause was introduced in '84, and then the second one in the period when I was vice chairman of EGPC. The first one was based on compensation. If more than 7 billion cubic meter of gas is discovered, then the operator is entitled to compensation, and this goes between 7 billion cubic meter to 14 billion. It's LIBOR plus, cost LIBOR plus, until it reaches 2 times and then stays within this range. And export is not allowed before the total cumulative reserves reach 12 trillion cubic feet in this case. So this was the first one, but it was not very well received by the industry, because companies claim that they're not in the business of money, they're in the business of energy. So we thought of changing the agreement into dealing with the gas like oil, and apply the production sharing agreement. The production sharing agreement was very, very feasible at the time. Egypt was a net exporter of oil. We were dealing only with large companies, and most areas were still frontier areas. So the situation is different now. I'll talk about it later. Then we thought of the first task I was given was to improve the terms to help exploration in the deep waters and to introduce the gas clause. Of course, I'm saying the first task, but it had already started when with a committee headed by Dr. Bambi to introduce the seed, as it were, to developing this clause. The stumbling blocks were the pricing of gas, the title to gas, what if gas is not needed locally, and so can they export or not. The price of gas, of course, I'm very glad to have heard what Mr. Al-Bahr mentioned about the pricing of gas, because this has always been the main stumbling block. And the title to gas, what if the market is not there? So this was solved by giving a grace period of 5 years and 7 years, and the clause that we all know about. Now, the deep water was more difficult at that time because cost is high, and gas, especially gas, unlike oil, you can find stranded gas fields. Stranded meaning, in the deep water, the cost of drilling is high. What if you find a very elongated feature? So you'll have to end up building more platforms, so it is stranded unless you give incentive for stranded gas fields to be developed. This was the main problem and still is until now. So now that the price of gas is changing accordingly, because it's not enough to change the terms of payment, the terms of the production sharing in profit gas and cost oil, because this is not always a criteria that you can use to recover, to make a good IRR. The only thing that can make good IRR for the company, especially in the areas where stranded gas or deep water gas is discovered, is the price of gas. So I'm glad to have heard this. I don't want to talk more about the whole thing, but I feel that the agreements, the production sharing agreements, as it is, when it was designed, it was meant for certain size companies, but inevitably the market changes because smaller companies come in, less technology is needed, less frontier areas exist. So I thought that the agreement, production sharing agreement, with the spirit of it, had to move dynamically with the changes that occur to the market. And now the agreements are the implementation. It is overregulated. A lot of new ideas come in to debug the system which exists now, and as a result, it hurts the operators quite badly. The spirit of the production sharing agreement that was put originally by Enrico Mattei, and it was applied in Indonesia first, is no longer exist. It's something, a being that cannot be, no tangible planning can be introduced. So at the end of the discussion, I have many ideas to put forward about the change of the concept of the agreements, because as I see it now, it is overregulated, a lot of conditions are put, and it makes, we lose a lot of effort and energy in dealing with small things and distracted from developing favorably for the companies and for the government, of course, this important resource. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salah Hafiz. I would like to add a point to Mr. Al-Bahr. I think it may be a possibility when you talk about the deep water gas, because of two different things that are very important. This is deep water and gas. This should be a complicated issue than deep water and oil, for example. It's different. Maybe within the bid itself, which you issue, the bid should be a contract, a complete contract that what would you like to have? So it will be maybe more items must be added to the bid document itself, explaining what you are expecting. Like, for example, you talk about different sizes or different rates of production and indicate what kind of price, what is the equation relating the gas to oil, what would be the minimum required and the maximum required for each case. You cannot say if you have a very big reservoir in deep water that it will be treated like a small reservoir in deep water. If you identify this, especially with the new parliament, because they will ask many questions, not like before. Before, most of the people were already aware of what the ministry was doing. Maybe you add additional pages explaining what you would like to see, and you can, for example, make a statement that you have no objection for the contractor to sell his gas direct to the local market, taking a certain percentage of the price or the contract due to the ownership of the national grid by the oil ministry, maybe 15% or 10% or whatever. But these items should be clear in the document issued, so that when companies apply, they have everything clear. But I am doubtful that if you say we will decide on price after the discovery, any contractor should put a big contingency factor for himself. So, but if you explain things in a very clear idea and a detailed idea, regardless of the length of the document that you issue, it will be better, especially in deep water. So that at the end of the day, you will not have to change anything else or introduce any ideas, then you will be criticized by many people. So you make a full contract, taking into consideration various volumes, various rates, and tell the company, ask the company or the bidder, what will you do, what kind of investment you will have, what will be your cost recovery percentage, what will be the relation between the oil and gas equation, what would be the minimum price you will be requiring so that you can develop, and what would be the highest price or percentage that you would like. By this, because now you are going, you have to go to the deep water areas in the Mediterranean, and this is a big area to make things special, or certain items special for bids in these areas. In the normal conditions, especially if it is oil is, little different from having gas, because you can sell oil anytime, put it in a tanker and move it. But gas, you cannot do that. Thank you, Salah, for your comments. Anybody? Yes, please.
First, really, I'd like to thank Oil and Gas for organizing this session. And as my colleagues highlighted, the issue of the agreement and the impact or how to deal with the deep water for the Mediterranean. As we know, we have challenging for each area in Egypt, geologically and economically. So we don't have one oil province all over the country. We have onshore challenge, whether southern Egypt, western desert, eastern desert, Nile Delta, the offshore areas like shallow marine as we started in early 80s, and right now we are exploring the deep water of the Mediterranean and as the Red Sea as well. We have Sinai, we have different areas, and end of the day, economics is the most important factor to evaluate. How this affect the contracts? The main challenge right now for the petroleum sector, how to convince or how to get the people aware, especially the new parliament and the people in the whole country, because as we see, there is evolution for the agreement terms and conditions until we reach it to the production sharing agreement. But we would like to tell the people this is not the only model all over the world. This could be valid in one area, in one country, and economically could be modified in different areas. So for the Mediterranean, the challenge is high for the high pressure, high temperature, for the reserve, for the investment itself. So we would like to be aware that the petroleum sector economically evaluates the opportunities and the investment based on the time of the proposal and the future expectation. And based on this, the right decision is taken and will be taken based on the benefit of the country. But the main challenge to get the people aware that production sharing agreement is good enough. We reached to this after long history and effort, but could be not the best example all the time, forever. This is one point. The other point, for the gas prices not to be defined until discovery, I believe most of cases is the associated gases. What happened for the current situation, if the exploration mainly for oil and discovered associated like Western Desert, this is the area where talking about the gas pricing after discovery, but for the deep water, of course, it's before. We have to reach the gas prices before even the concession agreement to be signed. Thanks.
Just a comment on what you said. Actually, in all agreements, whether it is oil province or gas and oil, you have to put a gas clause because the associated gas is priced. So,
it isn't the gas clause, but to get a definite price, it is included, of course, in the concession. But to define the price based on the facility, based on the area, how big the production, the reserve it is.
So maybe, please.
I'm just going to highlight very briefly after what we listened from these distinguished guests. Really, the model agreement is just a balance or a model that it cannot go in details for each area, as my colleague said, that each area has its characteristic. So we cannot make a model agreement fit with all areas, with all challenge in different areas as land or onshore or offshore, shallow water, deep water, ultra deep water. The main issue that exploration in deep water is not yet even started in Egypt really. We have only few cases. So we cannot get the example of these few cases and apply in the rest of the Mediterranean. But what I would like to say that we are working hard with EGAS to make more incentive for the investor, for the contractors, to invest huge money in deep water. And concerning the gas price, really, it's very tough to agree about the price before knowing the result. Let's agree first if we have a cake or not. If we have a cake, we can share the cake with each other. But there is many parameters and many factors affecting the gas price. The depth of the water, the well depths or the target depths, the proximity from the facility, if it's a standalone facility or can tie to existing facility, the type of gas, is it rich gas or lean gas? There is many, many parameters. So my conclusion for this is that we are working hard for the new agreement, because it's very tough to put one agreement covering the whole condition.
Thank you for your comment. However, I would like to, one of the people representing foreign companies to make a comment. Would you like to see a formula for pricing before you start or after you have the cake? Please.
Thank you very much. I think this discussion is very, very fruitful. As you know, Statoil is an offshore company. It's a deep water company. It's a gas company. And we very much like to be a part of future gas developments here in Egypt as well. We recently relinquished 2 concessions, but certainly our ambition is to get new positions. And having said that, I think our discussion here today is sort of spot on into the main risk pattern as we see it. It is certainly appreciated that the new model agreement is changed from the previous one that has a fixed gas price. So we now have gas negotiations, basically, after a field development plan. And I certainly also appreciate Mustafa Al-Bar's signals here today when it comes to the direct access to the local market. And of course, the flexibility that have been shown over the last few years when it comes to tailor-make agreements. Having said that, there still remains uncertainties, and I certainly also appreciate that you have to look into the case and take it case by case. What maybe is something we should discuss is maybe we could have some more principles that can actually guide the gas sales agreement. As it is now, it's stated that we will sit down and agree on a gas sales agreement, which is a gas price. Having some sort of principles, there, which is sort of the base for that negotiations. For instance, as maybe Mambe indicated, that we have some sort of link between the oil and gas will certainly help. Our challenge is, of course, to have an estimate on what will be the gas price some 10 years from now, when we probably or hopefully may be sitting around the table. And as a company, we are used to handle the general risk of gas oil pricing, sort of embedded in our risk management process. But in this case, we have sort of one additional risk. So maybe to discuss some principles that can be applied for those discussions, where we actually can share some upside and take the pain also downside. And maybe a link between an oil and gas can be something that can be sort of one principle. So this is sort of the important commercial considerations for us when we now are discussing a possible re-entry into Egypt and into deep water.
Thank you. Maybe if I like to make a last comment on this item. Okay, go ahead.
I would like to comment because I may forget to mention something. Of course, as you said, Dr. Hamdi, not each case should be considered or treated as similar to the other. Deep water is different than shallow water, and they are both different than the onshore areas which are producing gas. Plus, within the offshore, there is deep targets and shallow targets. We know that the future may be the deep targets, where it is below the Messinian and down to the Oligocene or Cretaceous. So this needs big investment and big contractors and big companies with big, let's say, technology, and this has cost too much. So when I said that we will sit together and decide the price of the gas, this is mainly because we will treat each discovery as a separate, and how we can develop this gas economically. The starting point of identifying the gas price in this case is the current price at the time of development. So we are not going to start from scratch, but there will be the normal price known at the time of this discovery will be the starting point where we are going to agree upon the gas price. If there is need for this gas to develop with this, to purchase this gas with this price to the local market. If not, he can sell this his share to the local market as well. So we have to consider each case by itself. The other point is in the bid round, we are not identifying or setting a certain terms and conditions for all the concessions. Of course, the deep targets, deep water, or ultra deep, they have to be a different terms and conditions and more incentives for the contractor. These are the 2 points that I would like to highlight.
Thank you. Very nice comment. Please.
Dr. Bambi, Your Excellency. I want to make a few comments generally in support of my colleague, Mr. Anders from Statoil. So yes, the previous system served as well, with the exception of the deep water, where we saw, and likewise also Shell has relinquished a number of licenses in the deep Mediterranean because we just couldn't make it work economically. We had discoveries, but the well cost just prohibited an economic development. And we're very pleased with the response from the government and the government agencies, in particular EGAS, but also the Ministry of Petroleum, to look at different ways to kind of still develop Egypt's resource, because that's for the benefit of the whole nation. But the dimension I miss is that I think what I hear in terms of flexibility and gas price options, I think that may work in the end, but I miss a sense of urgency around it, and I miss a little bit of clarity. Since the revolution, Egypt is on the route for a better Egypt, a more inclusive Egypt, and as you mentioned, with the new parliament in place, there's an enormous amount of education that has to be done, helping the parliament to understand the needs of the oil and gas industry. And I am concerned that whatever we discuss here around the table may be in itself very valuable, but what we now need to do is make sure that the new parliament and also the even larger part of the population understand the needs of the oil and gas industry. Because if we don't do that, we may land with agreements here and proposals here which that will not be accepted by Parliament or a larger part of the population. And so that's the comment I would like.
Thank you very much.
I think that thanks for the symposium. Thanks for Egypt Oil and Gas. Really very well organized. And my comment, we are focusing on future. And we are living in a very dynamic world. So we got to we are mature enough to get some lessons from the past and to live reality. The reality. We are focusing on the future. The reality saying that the concession agreement called for cost recovery and profit gas or oil. Whatever the cost. Cost means invest, extra invest. Extra invest means more of profit, gas or more profit percent. So that call for what? That call will have to be a bit, or to live the reality and to go with the trend, especially that we are right now, there are about 120 or 125 hosting countries, and there is very fierce competition against the petroleum investment dollar. So, and when you talk, yes, there is a production cost, transportation cost, and after all, it is, we have to be, I can't say relaxed, but again, we have to reflect. As for Egypt, since we are again living right now in abnormal condition with the new parliament, it will take a bit of time. But I like to simplify things. After all, it is a cost. Small, big, it is a cost. He will get his cost. What is left is the profit. Or gas profit. Sorry, profit gas. It is a percent. I can say no more than 15, 20, whatever. That's my comment. I know it's a bit general.
Thank you very much. If we can, please.
Yes, Jean-Pierre de la Total. Yes, I would like, first of all, to thank all these participants for this organizing this forum, and in particular in gas, Egypt. I think it is, of course, for a company like Total, a very important subject to clarify in terms of the future agreements. Indeed, focusing on HT deep water exploration is dealing with different things than working in a very mature area. Clearly, well in deep water HPHT conditions represent, just for exploration, in the range of $200 million investment. Can you imagine that investing that amount of money without knowing the reward you will get in case of success? It's possible. I think it isn't. We need to know when we put the money on the table, what be the reward in case of success. Mm-hmm. That's why it's very important to know the price mechanisms which could apply in case of success. You mentioned, Mustafa, something which is very important is that in the new concessions agreement might be access to give right to export or to access the local market. I think it's a good step in the right direction. Nevertheless, this will not come immediately. As it has been mentioned, Parliament education is probably a key step in this subject. And secondly, to organize the local market, it will not be done overnight, because you need regulation for that. You need to put in place gas sale agreements in order to clarify the rules. Because today, there are some agreements which allow people to sell gas to the local market already. Nobody does it, because the rules are not clear. The conditions are not there, need to be put in place. So, and to me, clearly, these things are very important. Cost recovery, profit share, and price go together. They are linked. Yes. You can play with profit shares if you know the price, or the way you could recover your investment, initial investment. So we cannot play with this without having one factor clarified, like the gas price. So thank you for your attention on this particular point.
Good morning, everyone. Miguel Vargas from Cipetrol. I would like just to comment briefly, of course, besides appreciate this opportunity to share these comments. I believe that are valuable and will link what is the foreign perspective and the governmental perspective. I would say that Egypt needs to find a way to attract more investment. Nowadays, the country is facing huge challenges. I will not refer to them, but the foreign companies were really affected. But payments, military permits issues. So in general, the legal framework of Egypt, of the new Egypt, which I believe that Mustafa Al-Bahar is going in the right direction, is promoting clarity, flexibility, and competency. Leave to the foreign companies, for inside, the economics perspective. They should balance the risk and reward. The gas price should be open and should be offered. Don't over-regulate this. Each block will be assessed differently. Deep water, shallow water, onshore, offshore. This is a condition that shall be offered by each company to balance the risk. So we don't need to over-regulate. It's much more simple. In this case, Egypt authorities, EGAS, EGPC, will define or will select the most competitive for the country. And the companies will
do their homework.
Of course. Yes. It's my point. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to, sorry. I just want to echo some of the words that has been said by colleagues. I think exploration, obviously we have reached the stage of top in the creaming curves of Pleistocene and Messinian discoveries, and all our new resources are actually in the deep objectives, Oligocene fairways, which is extremely expensive, and the exposure is quite high. As Jean-Pierre said, the well cost could be 200, it's actually probably even optimistic. So some of these developments are going to cost a lot of money, and it's not only commercial issues. I think we should highlight also some of the technical and even environmental issues that will be associated with that. So some of these reservoirs that we are trying to develop right now, the technology is not even there. So some of these are depending on 20K, for example, BOPs and development kits that are not even in the market as we speak. So what this tells you is that we need some...
Even in Gulf of Mexico?
Even in Gama, I can tell you, some of the discoveries made in the Mediterranean right now to be developed will need a big shift in technologies, which is a big exposure. And I think what the audience is asking for is basically some incentives in these agreements that actually will put the balance in the amount of money that the IOCs are willing to spend and the reward they're going to get for this spend. The issue of gas price is always going to be a difficult issue. So for all the shallow section, we more or less we developed a lot of projects. We understand the economic thresholds, what IRRs we need, and more or less we can get a fixed gas price that will fit all. For these deep discoveries, it's quite different because without appraising these discoveries right now, it's tough to tell what kind of price we are going to need to develop these and make commercial value out of these projects. So I think the flexibility is required, but also an incentive in the terms for the companies who are willing to invest in these deep fairways is required, and urgency is a factor that we should think of as well.
Thank you.
And there's not much I can say about deep sea and Mediterranean because this is not the area we operate in. But one thing that I think needs to be highlighted is that we do not want to reinvent the wheel. There are general ways that the whole world is doing in developing the oil and gas and specifically the deeper prospects. The investors in generally like to take the risk of exploration, production, maybe sometimes political risk. But this is about it. We really need to deregulate and just to leave the economics to the international partners. If it's a shallow gas and it is sold at the international price, you will just get a bigger signature bonus to it. I think one third factor that needs to be added to what the colleague from Total has mentioned is that there is the cost recovery, there is the profit share, and there is the gas price. There is also the signature bonus. If I'm developing gas at $6 in the Western Desert, I'm just going to pay a much bigger signature bonus than the signature bonus I will pay if I'm going to develop something in the Mediterranean. So I think it is very important at this point in time simply just to leave the economics to the international players and to the investors, whether it is in the Western Desert, which is an area where we would like to invest and where we have some investments, or the Mediterranean or the Gulf of Suez. We need to, the whole world is working in a deregulated market, and we will not be able to go over an arm's length relationship, particularly whether it is to gas or to oil. And gas is also a challenge that we are having. It has to be arm's length, and it has to be something that offers a lot of visibility and clarity. And you will get, the government will always get its benefit, whether it's from its share or from the production bonus or from the actual signature bonus that they get depending on the quantities of gas that the players view in this area. So I think deregulation is key, and going away from economics and leaving this to be translated in the outcome that will come to the international, from the international companies to the government is also very important to be taken into account. Thank you.
Let me first make a comment on your comment, then I will close. Actually, everything in the concession agreements are deregulated, except one point, which is regarding the minimum and maximum price of gas at certain point in time. This is the only thing. And this deregulation point or regulation point was added during starting the year 2000. It was not there in the agreements before. But when the oil prices jumped quite tremendously, and most people were still handling the gas prices in a deregulated market at a lower price than the relation between oil and gas based on BTUs, the Egyptian government started regulating the price of gas. Nobody knows what will happen in the future, but this is what I was talking about, because you cannot, we were not expecting the oil prices to jump to $150 a barrel, while in mid-90s it never exceeded $18 or $19. So the regulation came because of a new item that jumped on the concession agreements in Egypt only, because the gas market is different in many areas. Like in the US, you buy gas very cheap. You pay more money for the gas in Southeast Asia, you know. Excuse me? Yes, but what I meant here, I don't want to give an impression that in the concession agreements there is a regulated prices. The only thing is the gas, and because what happened in early 2005 or 6 or whatever, you know. But at certain point in time, things will stabilize again. But this is why the Ministry of Petroleum will ask the foreign company or expatriate company to state a lower limit and a higher limit for the million BTU of gas. Because till now in the world they are different. They are treated differently in the whole world. You see what I mean? Because of this point, I would like to conclude saying that production sharing agreements is the name of the game. But in different areas, you can have different model for tender. In the deep water, you will have a thicker model explaining many things that will make the expatriate company comfortable what to write down for you. And at the end of the day, you will select the best offer for you. By this, you will have great privilege. You will not discuss that in the parliament, because if you follow the legal system from A to Z, nobody will ask you why you did this or that. But when you go to the Energy Committee and trying to explain what agreements you have, the first question will be given to you is why this area is small and this area is large, and you get less here and over there. So before you go, you will identify what type of area you have. You will say this is deep water, this is gas, this is this is, see what I mean? You make a classification. By doing this, 50% of the effort will be gained. You know, you don't have, you will save 50% of your effort. The point of having a new parliament is no problem, because most people in Egypt, even now in schools, they know the oil business and this and that. But my advice is to make good presentations to the Energy Committee in the Parliament once you start going there. Maybe you invite them for visits in the Mediterranean to see what kind of wind, what kind of platform, you know, what kind of difficulty, what kind of risk, what kind of industrial safety, environment, and all that. If the seeing is believing, that's it. I think we covered the first 2 points. The obstacles encountered. No, maybe somebody would like to talk about this item. The second point here is obstacles encountered by investors during the contracting stage. There is a very good request. If your companies would like to submit any proposal that you see from your side that it should be included in the document, we will be very happy to receive them. Any comment when you go back to your office, maybe you talk to your colleagues, and if you would like to add something from your side, it will definitely be studied. I'm not responsible, by the way, but since I'm not responsible, I can talk with my freedom.
No, we're not going to fight with the regulatory body on any of, but comments are needed to be put forward, and then notes are taken. This is what we used to do in the past in the promotion campaigns. We go and listen to all concerns of the companies, and then we take them and try to preempt those concerns through changing the system. What I was saying, I agree very much with what Tawfiq said about deregulation, because this is the name of the game. We're not talking about the regulation myself. I'm not talking about over-regulating the agreement. Talking about over-regulating the undisclosed system of implementing the agreement. Yeah, this is because it was put a long time ago, but with different variables. Now the variables were introduced to the market as the basins were more and more developed and the technology were developed, and many companies entered the market. So there was over-regulating the implementation side. This is, we don't have to discuss here, but we can write. But we're talking about the agreement itself. I think this is the right place to talk about. But over-regulating, I agree, over-regulating the undisclosed bylaws or the internal system in the agreement, to my mind, it defeated the spirit of the production sharing agreement. So this is something that we could write a note. But to discuss the agreement itself, not the implementation, I think this is the right place to discuss it.
I don't know if if my message is received, Mr. Tawfiq, by me. I was talking about in the concession agreements, we are relating the million BTU of gas as equivalent to Gulf of Suez mix oil. You see what I mean? So when the oil prices went very high, while the gas prices internationally did not follow suit, they had to make some sort of regulation. So this regulation is valid in itself. But if the world gas market was following the oil market itself, they wouldn't have put a minimum or maximum, if you see what I mean. So this is not regulation. It is just some sort of fine-tuning or adjustment temporarily.
Mr. Minister, may I comment, please?
Please.
Well, the issue is that some of the things that we face in Egypt, I think, first of all, this is a very good opportunity for the government, for the governmental side to really listen to the concerns and the frustrations of many of the investors. And we are all operating in Egypt, and all of us are operating in Egypt, most of the companies around here, for years and years. I mean, and we all do appreciate very much what the Egyptian government is doing and what EGPC is doing. But times are changing quite fast, and it is very difficult from our experience to change something back. When the price, the floor and the ceiling were set at $1.50 and $2.65, at first $2.50 and then $2.65, this was set in early 2000. At this point in time, the price of oil was at 20, and it had not hit the 150 and the 100 and the 120. And the reason for it was to encourage investors and to give them a floor for the oil, for the gas price. And it worked for a time. Now the issue is that the whole market changed, and right now in the concession agreements, it is no longer linked to Gulf of Suez mix. It is in the concession agreements set as a floor or a ceiling. This is one type of concession agreements, and please correct me if I'm wrong, at 150 and 265. And the other type of concession agreement, it simply states to be agreed upon at the time of, after the commercial discovery. Now the issue that is being faced here is that because it is to be agreed upon at the time.
By the way, I was not aware that you left the Gulf of Suez mix.
That it was out. It is removed. So right now you have two types of gas prices. You have one that has a floor and a ceiling, which is extremely unattractive given the oil price and the gas price for services. I expend the same exact amount of money drilling a gas well as I do drilling an oil well. If I'm drilling an oil well at $100 Brent, and I have a gas well at $1 in some cases, and $1.50 and $2.65, I'm not going to drill the gas well, and I will spend this money drilling the oil well. Now this is a very serious problem to the Egyptian economy, and it is a self-defeating. It's a self-defeating purpose. And basically, what is happening is that we're just shooting ourselves in the leg. The other problem which is probably a better one, where they say we agree on the gas price at the time of commercial discovery. Now, if you take away the sense of urgency that was mentioned by some people and that we feel as well, it will be very difficult for us to reach an agreement. And it is very difficult for us to reach an agreement today if I'm producing in the Western Desert to sell my oil at $4 or $5, which is what we need to develop these discoveries. I think it is, had we kept it at Gulf of Suez mix, and had we deregulated the market here, it would have balanced itself automatically. But right now, there's absolutely no incentive to drill, whether in the Gulf of Suez or at least in the Gulf of Suez and in the Western Desert. If I have an oil well and a gas well, I'm going to drill the oil well, and the country needs the gas well. You're not selling, you're not producing molecules that you want to buy, that you're insisting on buying at 265. You're insisting on buying these molecules at 265, which is understandable given the political pressures. But at the same time, you are replacing these molecules with petroleum products at multiples of this value. And this is the problem that we are facing today. And it is trickling down to everything else in the system. And everyone around here, we see this problem, and we want to stand by it to resolve it. So for us to resolve it, we need to agree on different mechanisms and to have some clarity going forward and visibility. Are we going to stick to the production sharing agreements? If this is the case, this is what we need. Are we going to deregulate the gas market? Yes, and by that time. Are we going to move to tax royalty systems? Which is fine as well. But as long as there is clarity, there is visibility, and the risk is accepted.
Thank you.
So yes, so the clue again is the gas price, and again, everybody in this room knows that Egypt has a bad need for every cubic foot of gas, not for near future and for medium term as well. So all gas will be consumed in Egypt. So the clue is the gas price. And when we talk gas price, it tied with the gas itself as a natural resource deposit. How much is the price? Plus the production cost, plus the transportation cost. Yes, the natural gas as a deposit, like gold, it got to be a bit normalized, not worldwide. It might be also depend on the scarcity and the abundance in each country about its natural resources. All of these parameters might complicate you, but this is the thing. This is the clue. It's not right to just tied with the Gulf of Mexico. It's not just to put it in a frame minimum and the maximum. So it is not a small issue. That's my point of view. I might be wrong. Thanks.
Thank you. Maybe as I was mentioning, I did not know that you left the relation with the Gulf of Suez mix. I thought it was in and putting a minimum and a maximum. So you have a reference, but temporarily you have a minimum and maximum because the gas did not follow suit as far as prices as the oil. This could have been a good justification anyway. But since this is the case, you may think about having the fair market value at the point of development or something like that. Anyway, you should receive some comments from our audience in writing, and you will have much more ideas we select from.
Would like to be optimistic really because the questions and the points and the comment is really can orient us to just maybe one side, really. This is what I feel now. But the contract is a balance and it should be a win-win situation. For the gas pricing, especially for the associated gas, really, it's not a black box. If we know the reserve, if we know the capex, if we know the OPEX, if we know the production profile, the cost, so there is a very simple formula that can calculate this and get the best IRR to the contractor. So it's not a black box or it's not a magic to have a reasonable and fair gas price. The only challenge is the price for gas in deep water, which, as Mr. Mustafa said, we have to agree by the time of declaring the commercial discovery. So we would like to be a little bit more optimistic, have the willingness to work together to reach to a fair compromise price.
But you have to have reference. I don't sit down with you after 10 years. I will not be there, you will not be there, and I'm investing.
You are right, His Excellency.
You have to have reference.
The reference is if there is any example nearby, if there is a previous development plan, if we have a comparison apple to apple, because we cannot compare different, as I said from my introduction, that it can be case by case. We have three markets for the gas, as everybody knows. We have the Henry Hub for the American, we have the national point balance, and I don't remember the third one. Anyhow, but Brent or type Brent. But the problem is, if we remember, 4 or 5 years ago, the Henry Hub was almost more than $8-9 per million BTU. And this not tie with Brent price. Nowadays, Henry Hub is almost 2.1, and the Brent is almost 125. So there is difficulties to link the gas price with the Brent price.
No, I'm not talking about Brent. If you ask me to come and invest, let us be practical. If you ask me to come and invest and this drill a well for $200 million and maybe it gets dry or producer, and I don't know what will happen if I make success, you have to think and give me something fair. It applies on me and you. If you say I will give you the average between the 3 different markets in the world, for example, then it may be advantageous to you and not advantageous to me at certain point in time. But this is the oil business. It's risk. But if you tell me, I don't know, we sit down and discuss. If you are a very open-minded man, very courageous, a decision maker, if by coincidence you get a manager who is very coward and will not like to sign, then all the investment that is spent will go where? see what I mean? So you have to give, this is my opinion, and as I said, I am not responsible, but this is a recommendation that you have to give something in advance. Before I open my wallet and start paying money, I have to know what is happening. If you buy a shirt, you see the shirt, you pay the money for the shirt. If you invest in oil business, you will have to know what will happen if I invest. This is, and as I mentioned, the document may be bigger, may be explained in the tender document itself, especially with wherever you have big investment. ثانية واحدة. Please.
May I just add, the point we have expressed is sort of this clarity issue, and to have as much clarity as possible. I think certainly there has been a lot of flexibility in the previous negotiation of the last few years, and there has to be some case-by-case discussion. However, in our case, we have to make decisions, maybe this year, on a re-entry, and we have maybe to make decision of submitting a bid. And in those decisions, we have to make assumptions on the gas price, whether we like it or not. And of course, the more clarity we have up front on the principles, on the more guiding we have on the gas price, the better it will be to make those decisions. And we can reduce the risk attached to a decision by have clarity. It has certainly improved since the sort of the capped gas price of the old days for deep water development. And again, I think that the signal, at least from our side, is that to have as much clarity as possible, because we have to make decisions maybe already this year. And of course, knowing how this will work out and how we will work together and what sort of principles that will be applied will certainly help in that decision making and also making the right bid for you.
Thank you.
I believe that we have two issues here, which is the existing agreement, which has fixed terms and conditions, especially for the gas price. This is something we should work out in order to resolve these issues and develop the gas, because undeveloped, stop developing the gas, it's a loss for everybody. So we have to sit together and agree on this. But however, I'm talking here about the coming agreement or the bid round, the future.
The new ones.
The new ones,
yes.
Where the gas price is not there, and we left this for discussion. And this is, as Dr. Hamdi said, each discovery should be treated by its own, because it has his own parameters for development. When I said that we will sit together and agree on the pricing at that time, it means that the economics of this project will lead us to the gas price. We are not planning to misuse the authority. No, we are partners, and we are targeting to develop the gas and make more discoveries and produce more gas. So the target here is to develop this gas in a commercial or in an economical basis that will make profit for the partners. And we are partners. So we will work together in this. And we will consider the market price at the development, at the time of the development. And this is fair startup point to
reference, some reference.
Right. So, because you may have big project in a deep water, the economic will be, let's say, the price of the gas will be X. You may have small price in a shallow target that can cost you more than the deep target. So, the economics here is the driver, and we understand that the companies here, we are competing as Egypt. We are competing with some other countries in the Mediterranean and out worldwide. So, in order to attract investors, we have to understand this. They are willing to invest to make profit. We cannot just let them invest and without profit. So as long as we understand this, and we will work together to make this, to make the economics of this project feasible for both of us.
You as Egypt will have unknowns, and the expatriate company will have unknowns. The best way is to have the same unknowns, you and them.
It will never come unless we will sit together.
Conclusion. Please.
I think what Jolas Mustafa said makes eminent sense for development, but as an investor, I also need to have an indication of the gas price when I put an exploration bid in. And I also need an expectation of the gas price when I want to do appraisal or not. So it is not only about gas price at the time of development or a commerciality decision. It is all the way up front from the start of a bid round. And that's the dilemma we have. And I think we need some further thinking on how to frame that gas price issue.
By the way, you are not making decisions during this sitting. You see what I mean? Everything comes afterwards. Any conference has what happens after the conference is what is important. But during the conference, we talk. Then you catch what you like and you leave what you don't like. Please.
Thank you. Ian Barden from Vegas. Thank you very much for the invitation. As we're an onshore-based company, I don't have particularly focused remarks for the offshore, but I would like to say that the issues that the offshore developers or explorers are finding or coming into are rather similar onshore. They may be smaller, but the same principles apply to the onshore. And I've heard some discussion about fixed prices. Certainly we have contracts that are many years old that have fixed prices in them that may have been appropriate at the time but haven't moved with the times. I think the other thing that one needs to look at, we're all talking about gas prices, fair enough, but we need a mechanism. It was said by Statoil earlier that we need principles in place. You cannot always fix something, but you can fix a principle if it's got the parameters in to vary. And I think we're in a global economy, as everybody's aware. I think it's also useful to look at our competitors outside of Egypt PLC to see what our competitors are doing, because at the end of the day, under a global economy, you will be competing with other countries as well. So you do need to attract the funds to Egypt, and the way to do that is to be competitive.
They will be waiting for your written comments or suggestions, in writing, so that we sit down, relaxed, have a cup of coffee, and we're thinking. Then you meet with each other and see what you can do. Okay.
There is only one additional risk on that. What Jeroen highlighted before, the urgency. So if we leave a room for discussion, we have the risk to remain forever discussing. Buyback type of contracts leave the negotiation to development stage area. And in that case, there is a risk, not reaching an agreement. And in this case, the foreign company will leave, and maybe the state-owned company will remain to do something else with the discovery. If you regulate or agree the price after discovery, you are not considering the exploration risk. So it is something substantial when you decide to bid. So again, the invitation is to have certain reference, but to leave that risk to the companies before, not after. The reward and the risk are quietly different.
You take the risk, but you should know in advance the rule of the game.
Absolutely. And in this case, you leave for each company to assess each block differently. And there is no room for
We agree.
claimants.
We agree. I think that's what I said. So this is clear. Does anybody would like to comment on obstacles encountered during the contracting stage? I think all people in the petroleum industry, when you ask to have a meeting, they will meet. مش هيقولوا tomorrow, you know. Welcome back. Now we move to the coming item, talking about amendments to the current contracting system to render the sector more efficient and suit unconventional exploration and development methods.
Well, I don't totally grasp the title, but to suit unconventional exploration and development methods. This triggers something in my mind about the cost recovery for certain items, and I believe that some cost recovery for other items should not be investigated and scrutinized closely. I always say that, like someone wants to have an open heart surgery and then to tender it. I mean, this is not the way to do it. You know, he has to go to the best and the best for his money. There are certain activities, consultancies at large. If you're employing a rig, then you put specifications and you go by the price. Seismic also, the credibility of the company and specifications and the rest of it. But in certain cases, like processing, for instance, seismic processing, some companies are used to dealing with certain processing firms, and they know that this particular software will help them identify things that they're used to. They're used to quality control. So if you put it in tender, pure tender, well, first of all, the cost of certain activities is negligible compared to the overall cost. But essential to do, and maybe it can help add value to any other expensive activities they do. So for unconventional deep water, certain technologies, you know, we have to allow certain to have a free space, you know, to identify the technology that is needed in this particular area, and not to go through the rigmarole of cost recovery and tendering and the rest of it. So thank you.
I think I would like to echo what Hafiz said. I think it's sometimes the cost recovery is a real, could be a real pain for us. Sometimes you're not having the right discussion with EGAS and EGPC. A lot of focus on the outcome of the cost recovery rather than the technology itself. So we talked about the deep water, and it's a tough and harsh environment. A lot of new technologies would need to be applied. Seismic technology is not the real conventional narrow azimuth stuff. It's multi-azimuth and wide azimuth and coil and broadsides and stuff that needs significantly lead time and front-end loading, and also technology applications that it's not really about cost recovery. It's about finding the right contractor and finding the right technology And sometimes we feel that we are not having the right discussion with EGAS and with EGPC, focusing only on the cost recovery. We need a bit of more flexibility, and EGAS and EGPC should actually be promoting these technologies rather than actually discussing the cost recovery issues of it.
Thank you very much. Please.
Yeah, so my contribution is not as much about technology, but more about what is needed in terms of the framework to support unconventionals. Before I go to unconventionals, let me first touch on the conventional gas. I think we had an earlier discussion this morning about deep water, but a similar issue is happening onshore, and it's not as much an EGAS license issue, it's more with EGPC and GANOP. At this point in time, our company is no longer developing gas accumulations of 20 BCF, around 20 BCF, because we just can't make it work. Now, that is gas nearby infrastructure. That would be a simple, quick well, hooking up to the existing gathering system, producing almost immediate gas for Egypt. But with the current gas price, we can no longer afford it. And costs keep on rising, but with the gas price fixed, the only thing that gives away is this cutoff, and so we have to let even larger accumulations become stranded. And if it's a little further away from our infrastructure, you think about 25 or 30 BCF. So one of the quickest solutions in order to kind of get more gas into the grid and reduce the gap between demand and supply is to address this gas price. Not just for offshore, also for onshore. The other thing that stands in the way of more development and more gas and oil production is uncertainty about license extensions. At this point, what we now see is that there are various operators who now face immediate license extensions, or some have already expired. And in particular for development licenses, it is important that the operator has clarity about when these extensions will take place. In other countries, we have these type of extensions in place 2 to 3 years before the expiry date. Because it's very difficult for operators to keep on investing in infrastructure and in wells if they do not have access to those investments after the expiry of the license. Now, we understand, of course, that with the revolution in Egypt, things have changed, and we need to get these. We have a new parliament for which we had to wait. That's all understood. But I now hope that we can get this train of license extensions going again rapidly in Egypt. Because I foresee that if we do not get these things in place, that foreign investment will reduce over time. And that's not what we want. My company doesn't want that. I'm sure the government doesn't want that. It's important that we get these things going. That is just for conventional developments. Now, if we then go to unconventionals, think about shale gas, think about light tight oil, think about tight gas. What do these have in common? And that is that you have, if you look at the States, if you look at China, where some of these developments are ongoing, you see, you look at a large number of wells, very long development cycles, so you talk about 20, 30, 40 years that you need to kind of get payback. Huge numbers of wells. Often the resource is outside closure, so the old way of defining a development lease inside closure no longer holds. So there's a whole. So if Egypt wants to develop unconventional resources onshore, that light tight oil, tight gas, shale gas, of which my geologists tell me there are abundance presently in Egypt, we will need to kind of change also the way development leases, development licenses are defined for these unconventional plays. And I'm very pleased with the efforts so far of the government. I think the government has identified the tight gas play, the shale gas play. I hope they also recognize the significant light tight oil presence in Egypt, and will also, apart from the deep water that we discussed this morning, will also look at what changes are required to the whole permit and licensing system for onshore unconventionals.
Thank you. The ideas you just mentioned are marvelous, I think, and you may need study them in the future for gas shale and everything else. Whatever you want to do and get by is to write it down and put it on a bid. You receive bids, you select the best, so you have no problem. In addition to some explanation that must be done as soon as you can, you know, with the parliament, because they need to be educated or kept abreast of what is being done. But in my opinion, any individual in Egypt will be looking for the benefit and the prosperity of the country. So if you deliver good pieces of information to everyone, this will facilitate the whole thing. But the one point which should be very important at the beginning of the treatment with the new people is to have everything tendered, and you get the best and more suitable offer, you will have no problem. This is one point. The second point is regarding the cost recovery. When you use more expensive equipment, you should recover your cost. And in order to do that, you get prior approval from before you use whatever equipment that you like to do. There must be a discussion between the Ministry of Petroleum or the companies and the expatriate company. Then I don't think there should be any problem in recovering the money. Do you have any problem in that?
I will comment.
Okay.
Okay, since I'm representing the Ministry of Petroleum, so I have to answer this comment, which partially I don't agree about it. If we are talking specifically about the technique which Mr. Salah Hafiz mentioned about the seismic processing, there is real cases that the government on behalf of EGAS or EGBC on behalf of the Ministry of Petroleum approved a new technology. Example of that, there is a case for BitZ running some kind of spatial processing in their data. Another example for BB, since Ahmed also mentioned about the high tech, I think EGAS by that time approved the multi-azimuth technique, and this was the first time to apply even in the Middle East, not in Egypt, and EGAS approved this as a cost recovery. Another two examples which confirm that we are not behind the technology, we are online with the partners because the new techniques and the new technology will mitigate the risk for the two parties. The examples I'm going to mention also is GeoStreamer, which specifically Total asked for it and asked that there is a privilege and merits that will reflect from this technique, and I think EGAS also approved this technique. Nowadays, there is another technique approved also, which is broadside. So, to conclude this, the Ministry of Petroleum, EGAS, EGBC, is not against apply any new techniques which mitigate the risk for exploration. But since we are working with a concession agreement has a backbone for cost recovery and the profit share, we have to respect this concession agreement. So we cannot say that, for example, if this technique is, let's say, $10 and the new technique is, let's say, 10 times. What we are doing in EGAS, when I was in EGAS before, that we are making some sort of benchmark, and we are fair. And I think we did this with different contractors, and we have the satisfaction. So we are not against apply the new technology, but we have to respect the concession agreement as a fair, balanced agreement between the two parties.
Excuse me, sorry. Dave Blanchard with El Paso. Maybe if I could just say a couple of words. I think cost recovery of new technology is one thing, but I think there's an underlying element to the unconventional, and that is that as we mentioned, that the thing is that the production has a very long tail. It has maybe a high EUR, but has a very, very high production tail on it, and that does impact the economics. The other thing is you're trapped into a cycle of drilling. You're on a treadmill of drilling wells constantly. And maybe your spacing, your well spacing is 20, 60 acres, for example, in the Haynesville and in the Barnett Shale in the U.S., which are usually used as the type examples. You really have to keep drilling very, very quickly. And a vertical well in the same formation might cost $2 or $3 million. The horizontal well with all the fracking is up around $9 or $10 million. So I just think there's some fundamental differences aside from the technology and the cost recovery of specific technologies. There's an underlying element to this that we really have to consider if you're going to look at the economics of unconventional plays.